Continues as the partisan divide widens on important national topics. Florida's senior senator taking a stand on the newly enacted travel ban and counterterrorism.
Absolutely. We don't want somebody coming in that's a terrorist. And that's why we vet them.
Bill Nelson in one segment with us, Congressman Ted Yoho in another.
There's plenty of fodder out there, but if we focused on these things, the health care, the tax reforms, things like that the American people really care about, the other stuff needs to stay on a reality show as far as I'm concerned.
And we'll go to a Jacksonville expert on health care for her insights, Mia Jones, joining us. All of that part of This Week in Jacksonville. And welcome. Thanks so much for being with us on This Week in Jacksonville. Welcome once again to Congressman Ted Yoho, the U.S. representative from Gainesville, Florida's 3rd congressional district.
The best district.
And I appreciate you being with us. I know this has been a holiday week, and so time for you maybe to catch your breath.
Yeah.
See some of those constituents in the district. Talk to me a little bit about the big topic on health care. We know the health care plan for the House was passed. Senate still has been up in the air. Where do you stand on this new topic that's come out? Hey, maybe even repeal if we don't have a replacement. Are you there? Sounds like it.
I'm happy with that. That would be the smartest thing to do. In fact, I said the other day I'd ride my bicycle back to D.C. if I had to vote on a 100% repeal. Because, Ken, you think about it. If we got it off the table, the Affordable Care Act, 100% off, then both sides would come together to fix health care for the American people. That's what needs to be done. If not, it's going to be a partisan issue. And it shouldn't be, because this is something that affects every American. Yeah. And, of course, that's what we tried to do in the very beginning was 100% repeal. And it didn't happen. And right. So I'm happy to hear the president talk about that. I wish that would have been in February.
Yeah. So what does that look like from your perspective if there's a fix or what should a federal health care plan look like for everybody?
Well, what I want the American people and the people of this district to understand, our goal is to make sure people have access to quality health care that's affordable, that covers pre-existing conditions. And, prior to the Affordable Care Act, children could stay on their parents' health care till the age of 26 if they were dependent or, medical condition, or they were going to school full-time. So that would be a part of this, too. But the biggest thing is to make sure we drive down the cost of health insurance, and that's why we just passed a Patient's Choice bill this week out of the House that goes after true tort reform as one of the components of driving that cost down. And, of course, one of the bills we added in the very beginning of the year when the whole debate started, and I'm happy to see Ted Cruz coming out with pretty much the same bill, it's to hold harmless insurance companies so that they can draft and write policies now before the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, because if we were to do that, it opens up the private sector, and that's really what we need to bring down the cost.
Yeah, there's been so much debate about that, and obviously it has been partisan at times. Tell me about what's happening just in trying to get things moving in Congress. I think a lot of people have said, boy, under the President Trump administration, things aren't happening. There's a suggestion, there's a no vote. You're saying that this is actually, there are more bills happening in these first 6 months than under the first 6 months of President Obama.
Absolutely. And that's what doesn't get reported. And unfortunately, we get bogged down in the Twitter wars and that kind of stuff. And this is a different presidency than we've ever seen before, so there's different tactics. But the good things that are going on, it's just like last week we passed Kate's Law, which is to deport illegal criminal aliens that are in this country that have broken the law before, they've been deported and they left. If they come back, they're going to prison for a minimum of 2 years. We just passed a bill to go after sanctuary cities and gave sanctuary cities that are in compliant with the law that follows federal immigration laws, gives them protection if they get sued by a person that's here illegally. This is one of the roadblocks that were there to prevent some of these cities from complying, so this takes that away. Those were good things, and of course we talked about the Patient Protection Act, and those are good bills. We talked about Dodd-Frank was an overburdensome reaching of the federal government back in '09 that put a lot of our community banks out of business, as we talked about earlier. There was over 14,000 community banks prior to the Dodd-Frank bill. Today there's under 7,000, and that's mainly due to Dodd-Frank. We repealed that 100% in the House. Now it's over to Senate. So these are some of the good things that are going on. Plus we've rolled back just a ton of regulations that will save the American taxpayers over $6 billion in rules and regulations. And this is something that at the end of the day, people won't know, they won't hear it in the news, but they'll see more money at the end of the day.
Yeah, so that aligns with a couple of things I know are priorities to you personally in your representation of people in Florida: debt and foreign policy. And when we talk foreign policy, you've got some influence there in how we deal with Asia.
Sure.
Obviously, what's been happening in North Korea over the last several months has been of concern.
It really is, and this is something that affects not just Americans, but the whole world community.
Right.
I had the honor of being named the chairman of the Asia Pacific Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, and so we're right in the thick of this, and we were the ones pushing hard to have secondary sanctions put on Chinese entities that were doing business with North Korea. And of course, the administration, and I've sat with Rex Tillerson and Haley, Secretary of the UN.
The ambassador of the UN.
Yeah, and her name just escaped me. I just sat with her the other day. But we just talked about putting secondary sanctions on China so that these banking entities would stop doing business with North Korea, because it's empowering North Korea to stay in business and do their nuclear programs. And I'm happy to see the administration just did this. And one of our other bills that we just introduced was a state sponsor of terror, to put bad players like North Korea back on that list of state sponsors of terrorism, because it's a pariah status that keeps all these other countries from doing business with those. So it's a good thing. Good things are happening.
It sounds like there's continuing efforts there to have China help, but you've got to put some pressure on China.
We've got to put,
right?
you know, China has been talking the rhetoric like, yeah, we're there, but it's a sleight of hand. What they're doing is they're making China stronger. You know, one of the things they said they were going to do is stop trading with North Korea. China accounts for 90% of the trade with North Korea. So they said they were going to stop taking coal. They didn't stop taking coal. They slowed down a little bit. They had met their quota for the year. But iron ore imports to China from North Korea is up 270%. In fact, the trade between China and North Korea is up for the first quarter of this year 34.1%. So what they're telling us is not what they're doing, you know, and so we're going to hold them accountable, and we do that with secondary sanctions.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Congressman Ted Yoho, best wishes for getting some relaxed time during this week and then getting back after it.
Thank you, and Nikki Haley is who that name was.
Exactly.
And, it escaped me, but we had a great talk, and I appreciate it. Have a happy Independence Day.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So coming up, Democrats' perspective, that's just ahead for you. U.S. Senator Bill Nelson sits down with me next on This Week in Jacksonville.
This summer, enjoy a peach of a smoothie. Sip a sweet and delicious McCafe Peach Smoothie. A small McCafe frappe, smoothie, or shake is just $2 at McDonald's. Make every moment a McCafe moment.
Join in on the fun and cash in on the deals at the Chevy 4th of July sales event.
This is a fast car. Oh, boy.
Enjoy the ride this summer on exciting Chevy vehicles. For a limited time, get 0% financing for 72 months on select 2017 models. Or get 20% below MSRP on 2017 Impala Premier and Sonic LT. Find new roads at the Chevy 4th of July sales event.
The Declaration of Independence talks about inalienable rights, the ones that can't be taken from us. But that doesn't stop big business or insurance companies from trying to trample all over them. Sometimes you need an enforcer to fight for your rights. That's where we come in, when the powerful need to be reminded that you too have rights. Morgan & Morgan, we're here to enforce your rights.
This kitchen isn't real.
Like the labels some chicken brands use to mislead people.
Just smoke and mirrors to get them to pay more.
Labels like no added hormones or steroids.
It's funny because it's illegal to give chickens added hormones or steroids.
At Sanderson Farms, we raise good, honest chicken. Just check the oven. Ooh, and is right.
Sanderson Farms, good, honest chicken.
We had such a great experience with Empire, we would recommend it to anyone.
Real customers share their stories about Empire today.
The customer service and the personal touch was really where it's at.
And now with Empire's half-price sale, get half-price carpet, Hardwood, tile, vinyl, and laminate, plus half-price installation.
We've had people come in our home and say, wow, this is really beautiful. Where'd you have it done? Empire.
800-588-2300 Empire. Today. Mix and match classic taste on the McDonald's McBig 2 for $5 menu. A quarter pounder with cheese, filet of fish, legendary Big Mac, or 10-piece chicken McNuggets. Any two for just $5. Add on a Coke, any size soft drink is just $1. Let me get a McBig 2.
In this moment, true local news is more important than ever. And it's important to get local news from people you know and trust. News for Jax continues to make choices that put the people of Jacksonville first. And in the process, redefine what local news coverage means in our town, making it worth your time to watch. That's our promise and our commitment to you every day. Channel 4, the local station.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Bill Nelson has served in the U.S. Senate since 2001. And the Democrat spoke with me recently about the battle over health care and President Trump's travel ban.
At the end of the day, a political question like this has to be determined by the Supreme Court, and that's where it's headed. In the meantime, there are really some rocky, bumpy roads. As you can see, the Supreme Court left it kind of open as to who was the family that could come with them. And then the administration's interpreting this. It can be somebody, maybe your brother-in-law, but it can't be the grandmother or grandfather. And so there's going to be some real difficulty as this thing is being implemented until the Supreme Court decides the issue.
Are you disappointed that the issue isn't decided before some implementation happens?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the whole purpose of immigration is to let people that are legally entitled to come into the U.S. come in, and to protect ourselves, to vet people that are coming in from other countries so that we're not getting the bad guys coming in. I think the president's approach was a sledgehammer approach. A set of courts all the way up to a court of appeal rebuffed him. He came back, he modified it. I think it's a lot of overkill for political reasons, but at the end of the day, the issue is going to be decided by the top court.
Yeah. Is there a better way, or is there a way that you would propose on protecting ourselves, on mitigating that threat of terror that we've had to live with here since the beginning of the century in a new way, a different way with terror?
Absolutely. We don't want somebody coming in that's a terrorist, and that's why we vet them. So if you're talking about Syrian refugees, they don't even get a chance to apply to be a refugee for 1 solid year. And the vetting is extensive. You can pretty well be sure that by the time someone would be allowed to enter this country, they're not a terrorist.
Senator, one of the things that's been happening here in the spring, and now we're into the summer, is the focus from the new administration on health care. Repeal and replace, repeal and replace. You've mentioned that the Affordable Care Act does have some places where it could be improved, but you're one of the many people in your party, and even some Republicans, who are saying what's happening in the House and in the Senate for this new health care plan is not going to work. Why is that?
Well, again, this is politics. And unfortunately, instead of doing legislation like it ought to be done, which is bipartisan consensus building, the approach was taken, we're just going to cut the existing law. The existing law has done a lot of good. It's brought 24 million people to have insurance that they never had before. That's a good thing. It's expanded Medicaid so that poor people and seniors and children that never had health care, in fact, can have it. It's allowed insurance companies not to be able to refuse you insurance coverage if you have a previous condition. And I've seen conditions as little as asthma or a rash that a company would not give them health insurance. You can't do that anymore according to the law. So there's some real good parts of the law. So why don't we take the existing law in a bipartisan way and fix it? That's what ought to be done, instead of throw everything out the window and start with this plan that is having dastardly effects. It's no wonder this plan is so unpopular. I just saw a poll that said 16% of the people approve of this plan. Another reason is it's an $800 billion whack out of Medicaid. Who is Medicaid? The poor, the disabled, children, seniors in nursing homes. You don't want to do that. That's unconscionable. So why don't we take the existing law and fix it instead of this idea of repeal the whole thing?
So the GOP leadership in the Senate has been asked that question. Why aren't you working in a bipartisan fashion? And the answer was, Democrats don't want anything to do with this. How would you respond to that?
Just ask the ones that have reached out to the other side, such as I. How many speeches have I made on the floor of the Senate who said, look, we could fix this beginning in a nanosecond if people would be willing to come together in political bipartisanship to build consensus in order to achieve a working healthcare system. That's the great foundation upon which this country was put together. And that's what the people want. Not this one party does it to the exclusion of the other. And we see what happened. They kept it secret. Well, now we know why they kept it secret, because it's so bad, and as a result, it's so unpopular.
You've got a lot of experience with insurance here in the state of Florida when you led that department. Governor Scott has spent some time going to Washington, and he's got experience on that healthcare side. Also rumored, nothing confirmed, that he wants to run for your Senate seat here in a little while. What are the big differences there between how you would approach health care for our nation and how Governor Scott seems to be approaching it for the state of Florida specifically?
He wants to do it entirely from a partisan Republican basis. I want to bring the parties together to build bipartisan consensus. You ask him, however, does he support either the House or the Senate Republican plan? He will not give you an answer. I will give you an answer.
That's no, right? You don't support either of those plans, right?
Of course not. I've done everything that I can.
And on the issue of health care, Senator Nelson introduced legislation that would lower health insurance premiums by as much as 13% for some Floridians. That bill now heads to committee for consideration. And for your consideration, a local perspective on health care. Former State Representative Mia Jones joining us next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Harrell & Harrell is a personal injury law firm that fights for truth, safety, and justice. That's what we do. If you feel your loved one is being abused or neglected, please feel free to give me a call. I will walk you through it. I will help you through the process, and we'll make some good decisions.
Hey, I thought you were choosing the flute.
Everyone's doing flute.
Buick now has an SUV for that.
Where's your brother?
Hey, Mom, it's a tuba.
Get 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,250 purchase allowance on all Envision Preferred and Enclave leather models when you finance through GM Financial. Hurry, offer ends July 10th.
It's the final days of Mattress Firm's 4th of July sale, and we're celebrating with our first ever daily deals. Get amazing deals on everything from free pillows to 50% off mattresses from brands you love. And through Sunday, get an adjustable base absolutely free with select purchases. Plus, save on a selection of over 15 different models under $999. And sleep interest-free for 6 years. So don't miss the final days of Mattress Firm's 4th of July sale with daily deals.
Who provides the best entertainment and internet experience? Best in-home Wi-Fi experience? Lets you stream on 5 devices at once? Brings you Netflix on X1 and 75 megabits per second in the most popular packages? No question. Xfinity stacks up where AT&T doesn't. Get all these great reliable features and fast internet for an incredible price. Get up to 75 megabits per second download speed. Compare that to AT&T and get X1 and voice for $30 each for 1 year when you bundle all 3. Call 1-800-XFINITY today.
I'll drop and speak a child. Take the weather in your heart and away from on your tongue. The dreams I never met. Those wishes were.
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Don't miss the massive Red Tag RV Clearance Super Sale going on now at Dick Gore's RV World in Jacksonville. Prices have been slashed to the bare bone on all new and used RVs. Find out why everyone is shopping and buying their RV at Dick Gore's RV World in Jacksonville. Airport exit.
And it's our pleasure to have Mia Jones with us once again, state representative from Jacksonville for 8 years, now the chief executive for Agape Community Health Center. So let's start there. What is Agape?
Agape Community Health Center is a federally qualified health center here in Jacksonville. We have 5 locations. We're responsible for providing health care for insured, uninsured, and underinsured citizens within our community.
You made a big effort as state representative. You made a big effort in Jacksonville for your constituents when the Affordable Health Care Act was implemented to help people get connected. So how does the mission of Agape kind of fit into some of what government provides for health care?
It really falls in line with that. When the Affordable Care Act came about, it really opened up a door and an opportunity for facilities like Agape to be able to not just provide service to those that are uninsured and underinsured, but to be able to receive funding for that. And so at that point, it became really important for health care centers across the country for the expansion of Medicaid to take place, for the Affordable Care Act to be fully implemented so that there would be some assistance and a continuous assistance for those citizens who otherwise would not have that coverage. And so now I get the benefit of being able to, every single day, see people walk through the door who need the help, who don't have anywhere else to go. But at the same time, we get to help those who can make the choice of who they want to be their provider.
They're still able to come see you.
They are.
How about that? So tell me, I guess in the broad sense, what's your view of this continuing health care battle that we see up in Washington? Obviously, it affects what happens in the state and locally.
I'm really concerned with what I'm seeing because I recognize that in Florida, although we did not expand, what we saw was that we had a great need. We had so many Floridians, over 1 million Floridians who signed up and were able to get health care coverage for the first time. And as a result of that, we know that they were able to have preventative care and not just go to our emergency rooms as their primary care providers. And so when we look at the full picture, we want to make sure that there is something that's in place that is going to ensure that everybody who got it, or even a majority of those who got coverage, that they don't lose that coverage. Because what we do then is we set them back and we set our community back because they won't have anywhere to go other than our emergency room.
So you heard Congressman Yoho a few moments ago. He's Republican, he's conservative, and very much is in favor of repealing the Affordable Care Act. I've heard, as a matter of fact, even Senator Nelson a few moments ago said there are things that we can fix or change or adjust. Where do you fall on that? Is there a fix that needs to happen with the Affordable Care Act, or do you think that it's perfect the way it is, or what would you say?
I don't think any bill is perfect. There's always you would hear people say the devil is in the detail.
Right.
We have to be able to recognize that some things worked and some things didn't. And when you implement, you see what actually works. And so as we've had the opportunity to see the Affordable Care Act in action, we can look back and say, okay, we need to make these changes. We know that with the Senate bill and with the House bill, that those with pre-existing conditions would not be affected. We know that that was really critical, and it was a big deal for the Affordable Care Act to include that provision because they were left out. We know that there will be a lot of seniors who will be impacted if the Senate bill passes. If that passes, then we know that seniors who have served their time, they have worked, they have been a part of our community, we are standing on their shoulders. They will have to accept almost a 5-time increase in the amount of money that they pay for their insurance. And that's something that, you know, at the age of 65, you shouldn't have to worry about. And so as we start to
plan for that, you know, hard to get to retirement age and then have that additional amount that you're going to be on the hook for.
Right. And so when you start to look at the states that expanded and those that didn't, us being one that didn't, we know that there's still going to be other impacts. For those people who were able to get into the exchange, they will now not have the benefit of the subsidy to be there to support them being able to stand up and to get that coverage and to make sure that their families are protected. And that's really what insurance is all about. It's about protecting the family, protecting our community. And so as we're going through this process, I'm looking forward to us being able to look to our senators and hope that they will say, you know what, this is too important an issue to rush through it. It's too important an issue to just simply do away with the Affordable Care Act and not make sure that we have something in place to ensure that we're protecting the citizens that we represent.
Well, and as you and I talked just before we kind of started our segment, you're a hallmark as a state representative from Jacksonville. You would work across party lines. You did that with a Republican senator named Aaron Bean on some issues. So we know that that's what you'd like to see. We will have to see if that's really how it plays out on Capitol Hill. But Mia Jones, I appreciate it. I appreciate sharing a little bit more about what Agape Community Health Center is and your work there. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Well, This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. And what we're working on right now is to host Paul Renner, just voted as a future Speaker of the House in Florida. Plus, we're confirmed for Ability Housing's CEO discussing a new project in the area here in Northeast Florida. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching. On air on Channel 4 and online at newsforjax.com. You can go there and find previous episodes of This Week in Jacksonville as well.
Ever before, more people get their news from News 4 Jax, Jacksonville's #1 source for local news.